On Thursday, in Budapest, George Russell sat in front of the media and said something that should have ended this story completely. He said the team had told him it was his driving style. He said he'd worked on it in the simulator, he said he'd fixed it, and then, in the same breath, he told you it happened again anyway. That's not a driver clearing something up. That's a driver telling you. The explanation he was given didn't hold. Here's where this actually starts. Belgium, a few weeks ago. Russell's car was losing 10 kilometers an hour on the straight into the bus stop chicane compared to Kimi Antonelli's identical machine. Same team, same power unit spec, same regulations, same garage. And one car was simply slower where it mattered most. Toto Wolff was asked about it that weekend. And instead of answering, he redirected the question entirely. "Why don't you ask about Kimi and his great win?" he said. Which is true, Antonelli did have a great win. But that's not what anyone in that room was asking about. You don't deflect a simple question. You deflect a question you don't want to spend time on, or one you don't yet have a comfortable answer to. So what actually happened? Russell was told, initially, that the discrepancy came down to his own driving style, a difference in technique through that final sector that was costing him energy deployment down the straight. And to his credit, he took that seriously. He went back to the simulator, he worked on matching his approach more closely to what the team wanted. He came to Budapest having genuinely tried to fix a problem he was told was his to fix. Except it wasn't his to fix. Because after actually digging into the data, Mercedes found something else entirely. An issue buried deep in the calibration of the power unit software. Specifically, something that was front-loading Russell's energy deployment earlier in the lap than it should have been. Which meant he had less battery available exactly where it counted most on the run to that chicane. Read that again. The team told their driver it was a driving problem. It was, according to their own later admission, a software problem. Two very different explanations, and only one of them put the responsibility anywhere near where it actually belonged. Now, to be fair to Mercedes here, and this matters, this isn't necessarily a story about anyone lying. These power units are genuinely absurdly complex. George himself said it plainly. These new power units are exceptionally complex, and there was something deeply embedded in the calibration of the code, almost impossible to see unless you knew exactly what to look for. That's probably true. Finding one rogue calibration setting buried inside thousands of lines of energy management code is not a 5-minute diagnosis, but complexity doesn't erase the sequence of events. A driver was told the fault was his. He adjusted his own behavior to compensate for a problem that, it turns out, had nothing to do with his behavior at all. And in the middle of that, when a reporter tried to ask the obvious follow-up question, the team principal changed the subject. You have to ask yourself what that says about how information moves inside that garage. If the driving style explanation had been correct, fine, that's just racing, drivers work on things all the time, but it wasn't correct. And the gap between what Russell was told and what was actually true only closed once engineers went digging on their own timeline. Not because anyone rushed to protect their own driver from an incorrect narrative. Mercedes says it's fixed now. Countermeasures are in place, they say. We've got it covered, George. Don't worry about it. Maybe that's exactly right. Maybe this weekend the deployment issue is genuinely gone, and Russell's straight line speed matches Antonelli's the way it should. That part we'll find out on track, but here's what doesn't get fixed by a software patch. For a period of days, possibly longer, a driver operated under the belief that his own inputs were the problem, while the actual cause sat untouched inside the car's calibration. And the person best positioned to shorten that gap, the team principal, spent a press conference pointing at someone else's win instead of addressing it directly. Russell, for what it's worth, has handled this about as professionally as you could ask. He said this is the most resilient he's ever felt, that the team has had too much practice being disappointed and needs to come back stronger. That's a mature response to a frustrating situation, but resilience shouldn't be the thing a driver needs most when the actual issue was sitting in his own car's software the entire time. There's also the contract question hanging over all of this, because it never stays separate for long. Russell was asked directly whether he's staying. He said, "Look, we've not even collated about it, it's not even a question mark, I'm not going anywhere." Wolff has said something similar. Reassuring words on the surface. But reassurance and clarity are not the same thing, and neither of them has actually put specifics on the table. So here's the read. This wasn't sabotage. Nobody's claiming that, and nothing here supports it. But it also wasn't nothing. A driver was handed the wrong explanation for a real problem. adjusted his own driving to compensate for a fault that wasn't his, and the team principal's first instinct when asked about it publicly was to point the conversation somewhere else entirely. Mercedes says the bug is squashed. George says he's ready to move forward. Whether that confidence is justified starts getting tested from Friday practice onward, at a circuit where every tenth of straight line speed into that chicane is going to be very easy to compare, car to car, lap after lap. Watch that number closely this weekend. It'll tell you more than anything said in a press room. Drop your red in the comments. Do you think this was simply a hard bug to catch? Or does the way it was handled tell you something about how this team communicates under pressure? If you're new here, hit subscribe. We track every team boss reaction and every bit of paddock politics before it becomes the headline. Hit like if breakdowns like this are exactly what you come here for. And turn on notifications if you want the qualifying and race breakdown the moment the checkered flag drops in Hungary. Until the next one.